If that's the worst thing that the unions have done, is they put some posters with some words on it that you don't like, I mean, it seems like the unions aren't doing so bad on this issue, if that's the most damning evidence you have.
There was a hearing last week, a congressional hearing by the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. For those of you who do not know, that is when Democrats take office, they call it the House Committee on Education and Labor. And every time Republicans take office, they rename it to the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, because, you know, they see labor as a word that is dirty. So they try to cancel us. And that's what they were trying to do in this hearing last week. On the title of the hearing was Unmasking Union Antisemitism. Oh boy. Now I did want to pull this. I wanted to pull a quote from somewhere near the middle of the, hearing that was really interesting, because they were just, we're not attacking unions. We love unions. It's just this certain behavior's really bad. Let's play clip 2.
We're not attacking unions. We're attacking abusive union leadership that are not doing what they're supposed to do for their union membership. I thank unions for the working conditions I had at U.S. Steel, Southworks, because of what my dad as a union organizer and others did. We're talking about the backing away of protecting union workers. We're not attacking unions here. And I think that's why the Republican Party is now being seen as the party of the working man and woman, the rank and file. Randi Weingarten has not said anything about anti-Semitism. So to raise her name raises my ire.
Just lots of things there. Just want to point, the overall point of that clip was to show you that, they're saying we don't hate unions generally. We're just saying that they're doing this one bad thing and they should stop doing that bad thing. Now, I also want to comment, because he talked about how Randi Weingarten was raised by one of the pro-union people in the hearing to talk about how she is a Jewish union leader. And then he says that, she's not talked about anti-Semitism at all, hasn't said a thing about it. And, you can just literally Google Randi Weingarten anti-Semitism, and there are like a whole page of things about Randi Weingarten talking about anti-Semitism. Just literally Google Randi Weingarten anti-Semitism, and you'll see a bunch of stuff there. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous lie. Lying on the House floor, whatever you call it. Just absolutely ridiculous. And so now I want to juxtapose this statement from this Republican. We're not attacking unions. We're not attacking unions. We just think that this particular behavior is bad and they should stop. I'm going to play you a couple of clips for the recommendations from some of the anti-union people about what should be done about this quote-unquote anti-Semitism crisis. And you kind of evaluate whether or not this is just bog standard anti-union policies, or if it's specifically tailored at changing behavior within the labor movement. Let's play clip 3 this is from one of the witnesses who wants to freeload at Cornell. He's a grad student at Cornell, wants to get all the benefits of his union without having to pay his dues. Let's play clip 3.
I'm a registered Democrat. Protecting students from anti-Semitism and forced association should not be a partisan issue. It is wrong to make support of any ideological organization a condition of earning a PhD. As the steward of taxpayer dollars, Congress should hold Cornell accountable to its obligations under the Civil Rights Act. When Cornell allows CGSU and UE to create a hostile environment, it must face consequences. Finally, Congress should clarify that PhD students are students, not workers subject to forced dues. This was settled law until 2016, when the National Labor Relations Board erroneously classified us as employees. Congress should promptly fill vacancies on the NLRB so this can be rectified. By ensuring degree seekers are rightly defined as students, Congress can end the intimidation and harassment I and others have experienced from CGSU and UE, and the payment of union dues should be strictly voluntary.
So just in case you couldn't kind of parse through the way that he phrased that, his solutions are national right to work. His solutions are ending all grad student unions, eliminating the right of grad workers in this country to unionize, totally eliminating an entire section of the labor movement, not anti-union. Give me an effing break. Say it with your chest, right? I got my feelings hurt about some of the things that some of my coworkers said, and now I want to take away their rights. You know, okay, then we can debate the merits of that. But coming at this with like all this mealy mouth BS, oh, I'm not anti-union. I just got, it's so freaking ridiculous. And then he also said, I can't remember if it was in this clip, but he said something about a bare majority at Cornell voted in the union. And so I was like, a bare majority? That doesn't sound right, because almost all of these grad student unions have been voted in by overwhelming margins. So it seems like I would remember if there was a grad student union that was, just a super close election. The election results was 1,873 in favor of unionizing to 80.
I guess we know one of the 80.
So that sounds like a little bit more than a bare majority to me. Here's another one of the witnesses from the Republicans, a guy who literally works for the National Right to Work Foundation. Again, the Republicans telling us this hearing is not anti-union, it's just anti-Semitism. We just don't like anti-Semitism. We love unions, don't like anti-Semitism. Let's take a look at what his solutions are for this quote-unquote problem. Play clip 4.
So what are the solutions? First, Congress should pass the National Right to Work Act to end the problem of coercive forced unionism. Second, Congress should enact legislation redefining graduate students as students, not employees, as they were for the first 60 years. And third, Congress should strengthen Title VII to better protect employees of faith from unions, anti-Semitism, and radical ideologies. These would be small steps to restore individual employees' right to not be part of a forced collective that takes hateful pro-Hamas views on foreign events 5,000 miles away from the workplace. What could be more American than that?
Okay, so there you go. Anti-Semitism in the unions, pass national right to work. Doesn't seem like a very tailored policy. Does not seem like a very tailored policy. And so, okay,
Well, Jacob, hold on.
Yeah.
Hear him out. If the problem is the unions are being anti-Semitic, what if you just didn't have unions anymore?
true! Then we wouldn't have anti-Semitic unions. We just don't have the unions anymore, and the problem is solved. And that's why this whole BS about it's just so freaking frustrating. And so, okay. We've kind of framed the hearing for you. The Republicans are saying not anti-union, anti-Semitism. That's the thing. Despite the fact that all of the proposals to address this issue are literally the same exact proposals that these freaks have been pushing for 100 years. Okay, that's the framing. So let's actually take a look at this anti-Semitism. What are some of the problems that these people are allegedly having? And fortunately for us, Representative Randy Fine asked the question that I would want to ask, just to have this, just to have it on the table. He says, what is the worst thing? Give me the worst thing that's happened to you anti-Semitically. What is the worst anti-Semitic thing that you have experienced from your union? And so, when I heard him ask that, I'm like, okay, here we go. And because, look, I'm a person of the left. I'm a person that is pro-Palestine. And I think if you live in reality, you would recognize that there are there are anti-Semites on the left. There are people who say anti-Semitic things on the left, and, to a certain extent, they have been emboldened over the last several years. And so, look, I was expecting something like real here, right? Because even if there was something real there, that doesn't mean that we should support national right to work, but that does mean maybe there should be, within that union, maybe there should be some conversations about, certain things. And so, anyway, as I'm listening to this, I listened to this hearing 2 whole times, whole thing through twice. The first time I heard it, I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Here's I'm gonna have to like sit with this and kind of meditate on, what is the solution to real anti-Semitism from a fellow union member, and so I'm gonna listen to this instance of anti-Semitism, and I'm gonna think about what is actually the right way to address this. Okay, so I've set up the clip for a while. Let's play clip 5, where Representative Randy Fine asks one of the witnesses to give us the worst thing that's happened to her.
Ms. Mann, you testified about how the union contributed to the culture in your workplace. Could you tell us, the best is not the right word, the worst examples in the communication of anti-Semitic tropes or conspiracy theories in the multitude of things that you've gone through?
I would say that the posters that said "From the river to the sea" were definitely the worst of what I saw.
I mean, come on. Let's just play that again. Give me the worst anti-Semitic thing that you've experienced. You've traveled. You're from New York. You've traveled all the way from New York to Washington, D.C. to tell the American people about all the problems that you're having with anti-Semitism in your union. You've traveled hours, spent hundreds of dollars at least to get there, and you're putting this into the congressional record. And you get the opportunity to say, what's the worst thing, the thing that like keeps you up at night?
Ms. Mann, you testified about how the union contributed to the culture in your workplace. Could you tell us, the best is not the right word, the worst examples in the communication of anti-Semitic tropes or conspiracy theories in the multitude of things that you've gone through?
I would say that the posters that said "From the river to the sea" were definitely the worst of what I saw.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. The idea that that's the worst thing that happened to you is ridiculous. And there's just really not much else to say about that. And, and look. It's not to say that there's maybe not some people, who are in Palestine, in Hamas, that say that and have negative intentions. Like, I'm sure that must be the case. That must be the case that there are some people in the U.S. that say it with negative intentions. But the idea that that is one of the leading chants of Palestinian liberation. And I can even grant that maybe it makes some people uncomfortable because they've always associated it with the people that have negative intentions. I can even grant that and and say that, that your feelings are as feelings, they are valid. And, that maybe it warrants a conversation with your coworker to get there to try to understand better what the thing that the message that they're trying to say. But the idea, this is the worst thing that's happened to you. Just come on.
Well, I gotta say, my friend texted me this week, and she was going to get coffee here in Alabama, and happened to walk by a stop sign and noticed Patriot Front stickers on the stop sign here in Alabama. And, I don't know. It's just baffling if that's the worst thing that's ever happened that the unions have done is they put some posters with some words on it that you don't like, but that clearly contain no slurs or anything of that nature. I don't know. I mean, it seems like the unions aren't doing so bad on this issue, if that's the most damning evidence you have. Because, there are millions of union members who are as diverse as the working class, and you're going to find some union members with bad opinions, right? Like, that's a fact. And you're even going to find some probably with hateful beliefs. And that's really unfortunate. But yeah, that is a doozy. That's a doozy. Like, if that's the most damning evidence you have found, because the really sad thing about this is that there is real anti-Semitism, just like there's real racism and all kinds of bigotry. And when you cheapen it and use it to score political points like this, it really diminishes people who have had real experiences. And it diminishes real hatred and bigotry that is out there. And I do think it actually, it causes backlash. And I think it probably makes it more likely that there will be anti-Semitism when you falsely accuse people of it. And I think that is really unfortunate. I mean, and I know that this labor movement is not perfect and it never has been, but historically and today, our labor movement has always fought for human rights. And we have fallen short at times, but by and large, we have been a force for good, a force for equity, for inclusion, for bringing all kinds of people in together. And that's what I tell people, that unions are for workers. Doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, who you love, where you're born. If you're a worker, then unions are for you. And that is the overwhelming consensus in our unions, I do believe. And so it's not disappointing, because I would assume I had higher expectations. But wow, yeah, more power to you for entertaining this and like listening to the whole thing. It's really tragic in a way, because you think about all the other issues that Congress could be dealing with right now. Some of these same politicians are the same people who cut health care, who cut food stamps, who cut Medicaid. We're going to be dealing with the consequences of their actions for years. Everyday working people are going to suffer. And this is what they're wasting their time on.
Yeah, and let's talk just a little bit about Representative Randy Fine. In July of 2025, amid increasing warnings about famine in Gaza, Fine tweeted to starve away. That is a quote from him. Regarding innocent Palestinians, he tweeted, quote, "Innocent Palestinian civilians took a baby and a little boy hostage. They strangled them a month later and then mutilated their bodies to hide it. There are demons that live on earth. They deserve no state. They only deserve death." And this is, the subject is, quote, innocent Palestinian civilians. Later on, they deserve no state. They only deserve death.
So this is a man who calls for ethnic cleansing.
I mean, literally.
Who has the gall to say that unions are a problem because they put up posters.
Fine arranged for "regards from Randy Fine" to be written on an artillery shell to be fired on Gaza, and later arranged for messages on 2 more shells.
What a sadistic person.
Yeah. I mean,
that is sadistic.
Yeah, no, wicked, demonic, etc. And so that same, and again, just to reemphasize, just to dig in the point that this is not about anti-Semitism. One of the witnesses basically tells unions to shut up and dribble. Let's play clip 6.
I believe that unions should stick to negotiating wages, healthcare, employment conditions. The union should not have a political view that's unrelated to its members' well-being in the workplace. Just because unions were once politically active historically does not mean they need to be now. Times change. We shouldn't have to vote about political resolutions on anything about foreign policy that has nothing to do with representing individuals in New York City.
And, look, make the case. Put forward a resolution prohibiting, political involvement in your union and see if your coworkers agree to it. But unions are democratic. Yes, unions are democratic institutions, and they represent the whole worker. They are the workers' representatives in public life. And if workers want their voices as a working class to be heard on any issue, then the union is where to do it. And if you don't want your, you don't want your union involved in that, then make the case for it. And, maybe you can win. And there are some unions that do that. And there are some unions that do have stronger prohibitions against, engaging in politics, quote unquote. And so, that's fine. You can do that. But that's yet to say that, to kind of implicitly advocate that government stop unions from doing that.
Right. I don't like the opinions of my coworkers, and I cannot out-organize them, so I'm going to ask war criminals sitting in Congress to come in and swoop in and ban them. What the hell?
Yeah. And so Joseph McCartin was the witness for the Democrats, and so he makes the case for unions having a place in the political life of their members. Let's play clip 7.
Unions from their formation in the United States have realized that they have to take political stands to effectively defend and advance the interests of their members. That was true in the 1820s when the first unions helped to launch their own political parties, working men's parties. That was true in the early 20th century when Samuel Gompers drafted Labor's Bill of Grievances, because the courts were attacking workers' rights to strike effectively, to organize, and they knew they had to get political to fight back against that. That was true in the 1960s when the labor movement supported the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Acts, because they understood that what could be won at the bargaining table could be undermined by politics if workers didn't have a democratic voice there. That has been the labor movement's history. That is its stand even today.
Yes. And if I could ask you another question very quickly. Historically, how has social inequality coincided with the strength or lack thereof of labor unions?
Social inequality has been in inverse proportion to union strength. When union strength is strong, social inequality is weak. When union strength weakens, social inequality grows. That was true in the 1920s, when the labor movement hit one of its low points, inequality surged. After World War II, when the labor movement was strong, inequality dropped. Economists talk about the period of the Great Compression, because the poorest 20% of Americans saw their income rise most then. When unions weakened in the 20th and early 21st century, however, we've seen inequality surge. Perhaps members here know of the recent study by the Rand Corporation, which documented that if we had merely retained the distribution of income we had in 1973 to the present day, the lowest 90% of Americans would have earned $79 trillion more than they ended up earning. That's because of union weakness.
And if I could conclude, I just want to say that this is obviously not about protecting workers. It's been about silencing dissent, criminalizing free speech, and chipping away at the foundation of our democracy in order to accelerate a shift toward authoritarianism. Unions are the first line of protection against that, and we have to speak out against these attempts to suppress these unions. Thank you, and I yield back.
Joseph McCartin continues and elaborates on why fighting for national right to work is not going to address even the degree to which anti-Semitism is a problem among some union members. Fighting for right to work nationally is not going to address that. Let's play clip 8.
Fighting for a National Right to Work Act, as Mr. Taubman is calling for, is not going to solve the problem of anti-Semitism or improve the bargaining power of workers. It's really a non sequitur when it comes to the question that we're considering here today as well. That is, do unions promote anti-Semitism? Union members have rights. There's been lots of talk that union members or unions are not properly defending their members, representing them today. I would assert that they represent their members as well as anybody on this panel represents your constituents. That doesn't mean that your constituents agree with everything you do. They don't. That doesn't make your positions any less legitimate. That's what unions are about, representing people, and they might not do it to the satisfaction of every member.
And that's exactly right. I mean, there's really not much else to say about that. And it's just, he also points out how the right to work guy has been literally fighting unions for 43 years. and he says the right to work guy, in his opening statement, he talks about how this isn't your grandfather's unions. And McCartan's like, well, this guy, the guy literally sitting next to me, he hated your grandfather's unions and he was fighting against your grandfather's unions, So like, screw this guy, basically. He didn't say the last thing, but
right.
It's just so frustrating.
It's just now this is a new topic that they can dig in on.
Let's round out with, we're going to skip clip 9 and then we're going to come back to it. I want to play clip 10 because, the Cornell Union is a local of UE. And so UE in particular was being smeared all throughout the hearing. And McCartan responded to some of the slander, frankly, against UE. Let's play clip 10.
It's been a lot of energy talking about the United Electrical Workers here today. Mr. Rubenstein, Mr. Taubman, together had 255 pages of testimony about the UE. Not once in those 255 pages did the name Carl Rosen appear. Who is Carl Rosen? He's the son of a Jewish worker. He leads that union now. And he's being attacked here as a supporter of Hamas. I would urge anybody in this committee to go to the website of the United Electrical Workers and see if they endorse and embrace Hamas. Since Samuel Gomper's time, and you will find that they don't, since Samuel Gomper's time, this is the kind of attack labor has faced. Mr. Taubman has told you, for 43 years he's fought unions. He says, these unions are not your father's labor unions. He didn't like our father's labor unions either. He was fighting them 43 years ago. Then he might not have been talking about anti-Semitism, now he is. At the very moment that he's bringing these cases forward, he's also bringing another case forward at Cornell of a student who's not alleging anti-Semitism at all, but just does not believe that they should be in a graduate student union. Mr. Taubman at one point said that Samuel Gomper said unions ought to be voluntary. Samuel Gomper might have, if you pull that out of context somewhere, said something like that, but he fought his whole life for the idea of a union shop being a very American thing. That was what he was dedicated to. And so to portray him in this way, to caricature him and to caricature so many of the people we've heard caricatured here, it breaks faith with that image you're talking about, Congressman, of Gomper's enlightening Roosevelt. We need a little bit more of that kind of enlightenment, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. So the last thing that I wanted to do...
That was a very gentle professor kind of way of owning him.
Yeah, that's a great idea for the title. Labor historian totally owns national right to work freak. I'll end on this clip 9 because they talk about quote unquote funding agendas and stuff, and I have some things to respond to with respect to who's funding whose agendas. Let's play clip 9.
I'll begin with the principle that I think everyone should agree with. No employee should be required as a condition of their employment to financially support a political agenda or a candidate that he or she opposes.
Now, this is just a real sort of ridiculous thing if you know anything about the way that the American economy works, or any economy, frankly, because the reality is that workers create all of the profits that a company has, and workers have no say over how that profit is spent, including the extent to which profits are spent on political campaigns. Corporate donation in political campaigns far outweigh union donations. Workers get a say over union donations to candidates. We do not get a say over corporate donations to candidates. Do Home Depot customers get a say when Home Depot writes big checks to Donald Trump? Do Home Depot workers get a say when Home Depot writes big checks to Donald Trump? No, they don't. Workers in unions do when unions write checks to political candidates. And further, the only times that unions donate to political candidates are through PACs, which are separate, voluntary contributions from members. They do not come from dues money. It is illegal to spend dues money on political campaigns. Very frustrating. So, if you appreciate that I sat through that hearing twice, you can make a donation, tvlr.fm/donate for my sacrifice to help me sit through the next one. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.